Are you an entrepreneur tied to your business so much that you couldn't step away if an emergency happened? Today, I'm going to share why it's so important to prep your business in case of an emergency, whether yours or someone you love, and you can't run the company like you do now.
Welcome to Biz Help for You, the show that saves you the expensive learning curve by providing advice from industry experts in every facet of the entrepreneurial journey. Too many small businesses collapse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20% fail within their first year, and less than 35% make it to their 10th anniversary. The goal of this podcast is to change that statistic. So if you're interested in learning more to be a successful entrepreneur, tune in today.
As you may know, I've been talking about how important it is to take an unplugged vacation, and I've been interviewed on numerous podcasts in the last 12 to 18 months on this topic. I've also been sharing the message through social media and other means. But today I'm going to talk to you about why it's so important to prepare your staff and yourself to be able to step away if an emergency arises. Now, I wasn't planning on doing this topic at all today, but I decided to just record kind of what's going on in my own life right now, just to demonstrate to you why this is so important and why it's a passion for me. I'd already been passionate about teaching entrepreneurs how to take time away. We work all the time as entrepreneurs and we think that's just what we have to do. But I've had in the back of my mind, which is why I started implementing this in the first place in my own business. I have aging parents. I have an aging mother-in-law. What if something happened to me and my business, couldn't run without me? What would happen to my staff? So I've been implementing in my own company things that would allow me to step away if needed. And the time for me to have to implement it for emergencies came up sooner than I even expected. So I knew that my mom was supposed to have surgery back in December 2025. I didn't yet know the date, but at that time I was planning on going to be with them once that was scheduled because my dad had been suffering what was supposedly with sciatica. He'd been in a lot of pain, couldn't really get around too much, spent a lot of time in bed because he just didn't have a lot of energy. And so I knew when my mom had surgery, he wouldn't be able to help. So the plan was for me to go sometime in December to help. Well, in November, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. So I had a call in the evening on November 17th that he had finally had an MRI. The doctor had looked at the MRI and said that he had bone cancer. And so, of course, I decided to just hop in the car and drive the next day to be with them so I could be there for the doctor's appointment that he would be having later that week with the oncologist. And we could all be together as we learned kind of the full scope of what his disease was, what the treatment options were going to be, and, just be able to support each other through that. On November 21st, my dad had his first doctor's appointment and I was there and I actually, did take notes on all of the things that we were hearing so we could make sure we understood everything, go back and review the details. And so I was able to just, let my staff know, once again, I am not going to be able to be on at all while I'm driving to Indiana. It was about a 9.5, 10-hour drive. And then when I had doctor's appointments, I'm not going to be able to be on during the day during this period of time. And they were able to handle things for me. Once he'd had that appointment, of course, then they knew they had to do biopsies. They had to do MRIs. They had to do, just to kind of learn exactly what the seriousness of this was, what phase was he in, what treatment options would they pursue based on the information that they got. So I took him to the hospital for those biopsies, and then on a different day on the MRIs that he had to have. My mom then did have surgery in December, so she also needed help. She wasn't able to lift anything more than just a couple pounds. I was doing, of course, all the food prep. I was taking her to doctor's appointments and my dad to doctor's appointments. And so I still was working during the day for part of the week, or even some of the days each work day during the week, but I was able to step away as necessary. My dad then started infusions, so I would take him again to the doctor's appointments. And those infusions were usually 4 to 5 hours, of course, and then the travel time to and from where my parents live. They live in a small town, and so most of the medical treatments and doctor's visits had to be about 30 miles away. There's not really a lot you could do locally. And so I was gone many, many hours at a time when I was helping him with this. And I was also able to be at his home. He had fallen, one time where I was able to help get him up. Another time when he fell, he actually was knocked out. We had to call the paramedics. And after that, we found out that he'd had some complications due to his treatment for cancer that had caused, some other issues, and his weakness and the weakness and exhaustion that we attributed to having his cancer treated. It actually had caused some other issues. And so again, I just let my staff know I'm taking my dad, or the paramedics are taking my dad to the ER. I'm going to be at the ER with him until we know more. Then they had to transport him again to a different hospital because the local one only did ER care but didn't have an ICU in case he needed to be placed in ICU. He was in the hospital for a few days, and then they were going to release him to a rehab center. So then I was able to go and help him get established in the rehab center. We met with the care team a few days later when they were talking about what his treatment looked like. They had physical therapists there talking about what they were going to be doing. They had the cafeteria person there to talk about meals. They had a social worker there talking about what would happen with insurance. They had different people there, and I was able to be at that meeting once again, take notes on all of the things that were happening so that, my mom could also go back and remember everything. If my dad had more questions, I could go over that. And, we were able to go visit him during the day if needed. Check in on the evening if necessary. But again, I was able to be more present and available if needed. So at this very moment, while I'm recording this, my dad actually has been taken back to the ER from the facility that he's in. I was already planning on flying back tomorrow. I had taken about 10 days to come home. We knew he would be in the rehab for a little bit of time. My birthday was coming up. I hadn't seen, of course, my husband, my daughter, my grandkids, my son-in-law, and I wanted to be able to come home and spend a little bit of time here. And so my brother was actually with them in case my dad had been released and he needed someone at home. But I am flying there tomorrow. I will be there indefinitely until we know that it is, the time where I could come back home, that my dad can operate again on his own, or worst case scenario, which of course I don't even want to think about that right now. But what does that look like in terms of me being away? Now, I know this isn't easy if you have a brick and mortar business, or if you have something like a restaurant or something, where sometimes it may not be as easy for you to just immediately step away and work remotely like I can. But every industry does have where you can step away. You just need to prepare, and it might take a little bit more preparation for something like that. But again, what if something happened to you? If you had an emergency that you were disabled and you were not able to work at all, it wasn't something you could even work, from a hospital bed on a laptop, like what would have happened to your business if that happens to you, or a family member needs you? I want to encourage you to really think about that. What would it look like for your business? Would your business survive? Would you be able to continue having it operate and you not be the one making the decisions, running the payroll, client, answers, to questions that they have, whether it's emails or phone calls, prospects, marketing, all of the things? Like, what would stop if you could not function in your business for whatever reason? So, I have been planning this for a little bit too. It's taken time. I had to implement things, and I started with one thing first, and I changed where staff couldn't just reach out to me every time a question came up immediately. They had to reach out to other team members first. I have set times on my calendar that I do answer questions. Of course, if something is truly an emergency, then they can, reach out to me and let me know why it's an emergency. But prior to that, I literally was getting calls throughout the day. And so I would get up very early in the morning. I would focus on things that needed my attention without distraction before anyone even started work. whether it was, customers or even my staff. So I didn't have those interruptions, but then I would have interruptions throughout the day. And I had 11 staff members at the time. And so different questions could pop up all the time. And so I had to change that. Right. And so that was one of the things I did. I've also handed off payroll processing to an operations manager. I hired someone in as an operations manager to start learning how to do some of the things I did. I used to have to do the invoicing originally myself. Then I had to proofread all of the invoices to make sure they were correct. And now we have something in place where other team members can help with all of that too. Again, it's not perfect yet. I still have a lot that I want to do in my own business and make it even better. But again, it has allowed me, if something came up, to step away, be present with the family as they have needed me to be there for, emotional support, physical support, whatever that is. And so I want to encourage you. You might be thinking too, I don't have a team, it's just me. But it doesn't have to be employees. If you have an independent contractor that can help you with social media, you could have maybe a business manager that does help you with certain things in your company that would be able to operate that for you while you step away. Whatever that looks like, I want you to think about what could you do to start preparing your business so that it can run without you if something happens. And again, it wasn't perfect for me either. In January, it is our craziest month of the year ever. We have all documents due to the government agencies, whether it is the normal quarterly, it's year end, it's W-2s, it's 1099s, we had sales tax returns. Like every document is due to the government. And we had a new 1099 client that had 247 1099s that need to be processed. Now, I could have asked staff to help with that, but they already had a lot on their plates too, with all the bookkeeping that had to be done. Again, the payroll, the sales tax, the other 1099s for clients we currently had as well. So I'm not saying I didn't work at all. I'm saying that as needed, I stepped away. So I still was working. Sometimes I just had the whole day off. Sometimes I just took 4 or 5 hours off. But again, can you do that if something happens to you right now? So I definitely want to encourage you, again, really think about what that looks like for you. And does it mean that you have to take time off for an unplugged vacation? Of course not. But can you, if you prepare your business? Yes. So it doesn't even have to be an emergency. It's, do you want to have a true vacation without having to always be on your laptop and checking things and you're just doing work in a different location? And again, that's one of the things I've talked about for many, many months. That's not the real focus of this podcast today. Again, this is more talking about what happens if there's truly an emergency, you're disabled, you can't work, or someone you love needs your attention and you need to be there with them. So I ask you again, if something happened and you couldn't work, could your company function without you being in the middle of it, making the decisions, encouraging your staff on how to do things the right way, and taking those calls from your clients? Could that happen without you being in the middle of it? I want to really encourage you to think about that. If the answer is yes, I applaud you. That's fabulous that your company is doing what it needs to do to support you and your lifestyle. But if not, are you ready to make a change? Do you want to empower your team? Again, whether they're employees or freelance workers. My passion is to help you get financial and time freedom. So if you aren't in a place where you know you could step away, if something happens to you or a family member, I encourage you, please reach out, discuss how I can help you set up your business for success without you being the bottleneck. I'm going to have a link in the show notes. It's a brief questionnaire. You could just give me some basic information about where you are right now in your business and some of the challenges you're facing. And if you're ready right now to get started on what we can do to help you prepare your business to run without you, you don't have to be the bottleneck. Again, you don't have to completely step away. It doesn't mean you don't work at all, but it means you do have that path to freedom if something arises. So definitely reach out if this is something that resonates with you. And if you know anyone else who maybe is in the position where they need to prepare their business too, let them know about this episode. Please share it with them so that they can listen in as well. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.